don't know what to do anymore. So are they two different? Are you trolling me? What is happening?
Captain's Pod, Stardate 812123.2. Yes, the star date actually means something. Welcome aboard the Starship's Enterprise, and thank you for joining us as we take a brief short leap from the world of CinemaSins to explore the universe of Star Trek. I'm your Captain Ian Whittington, and with me as always, she still can't say Quadritriticale, it's Ambassador Deneé.
No, I can't, and I won't. That reminds me of that thing that you showed me, things I can't say correctly, Cerrito Burrito. And then you showed me that thing. I was on Discord. So on our Captain's Pod Discord, which is inside of our CinemaSins Discord, for those of you interested, CinemaSins, discord.gg/CinemaSins will get you there.
Seamless.
Somebody posted a picture of, will you tell it? Because I can't remember it all very well.
So it's a picture from, there's a Lower Decks mobile app game thing. And there's a picture of a Cardassian on it that says, "Oh, you must be from the USS Burrito." And they obviously shared this in Captain's Pod in the Discord channel because Deneé has to call it the Burrito. You can't call it anything else. Yeah. And it's nice to think that maybe one of the app writers listens to the show, but I think it's a common thing. My instinct is that a lot of people call it the Burrito.
It is super fun to think, though, that maybe somebody who is a Star Trek fan, maybe a writer of the show or something, does listen to us. Do you know what I mean?
It would be amazing.
I know we've had people on the show and we've had some amazing interviews, but I always wonder, like, do they actually listen? Are they enjoying themselves? But you know what? Those famous people don't matter as much as everybody else, because we've been getting some emails lately of people who have been really sad to listen to our show because they've caught up on the backlog. They have nothing else to listen to.
It's one of the best.
It's amazing.
It's one of the best emails, isn't it? I don't have anything to listen to. Produce more content. I'm trying. We're trying. We're so sorry. Thank you. Speaking of which, we do have an email this week in that vein. So let's head over to some emails. Okay, hailing frequencies open, everyone. It's time for us to read your emails from Discord, Twitter, and, well, email. This comes from, and I apologize in advance, it is Squalina. Squalina. My experience of your show probably matches Deneé's experience with Star Trek at this point, getting the hang of it after enjoying a fistful of episodes. I've decided to go back and start your show from scratch, rewatching each episode of Star Trek before I listen to your podcast. Yay! I find this a great way to engage with the show and revisit some great and rather sinful Star Trek moments. Heck yeah, that is our mission.
Oh my god, that's really fun. So it's like a choose your adventure watch along Captain's Pod style.
Heck yeah. Hey, that's the
awesome.
goal. We end up with 1,200 episodes of Captain's Pod, one for every episode. They just aged.
How old will I be when that happens?
Ancient. As I was compiling a list of all the Star Trek / Captain's Pod's episodes I have left to enjoy, I noticed you haven't visited a single episode of Enterprise yet. This has been mentioned a few times, so I didn't want to address it.
Yeah.
It's great you're finally going back to TOS to give Deneé a taste, but may I also highly recommend every episode of Enterprise that features everyone's favourite Andorian, Commander Shran.
Who?
So you know Agamus, who is... Wait, give me a second! Agamus is one of the evil AIs that's in Lower Decks. It's in like this rectangular cube thing, and it was the one
that falls in love with Peanut Hamper?
Exactly, that's the one. So that's voiced by Jeffrey Combs, who has been in so many different iterations of Star Trek, usually as a recurring alien or something like that. So he's like kind of after Deep Space Nine, Enterprise went way back into the past, and he plays an Andorian, and he's amazing. So that's Commander Shran. Yeah, and specifically, can I recommend the Andorian incident? So, Enterprise is really good. I've mentioned this before, that it had like kind of a bad rap, but I really enjoy it. I'm hesitant to get the Ambassador into it just yet, because just Star Trek new stuff overload, because as much as TOS is different from TNG, DS9 is different from TNG and TOS, Enterprise is on its own on an island 100 years before the original series. So 200 odd years before TNG.
So we're still using paper and pens.
Yeah, it's basically, yeah, exactly. It's still in the future, but it's so different and it's so much its own thing that I want to do a good job of introducing it and would probably do a few episodes back to back. So it is going to happen. It just may not be for a little while because it's like introducing you to an entirely new show. So I want to be careful about when we do this stuff.
I do have to say also, though, just real quickly, that if we did one episode a week, it would be like 23 years to do 1,200 episodes.
That sounds right.
So we will have to release more than one episode a week.
Eventually,
if we're going to actually try to watch them all. But how crazy
we should have
would
started
it be
this much sooner.
To be so out of order? Like we got an email that's like, or we got a message. Someone was talking about us doing them out of order, not realizing kind of the format of the show and how it's working. So Ian was kind of trying to explain it, and I thought, yeah, how weird is it? We're not a normal watch along podcast. We're doing it based on instinct, recommendation, and conversation.
What's amazing is that we are a watch along podcast until we're not, because we do the watch along for the live show and then just like scattershot. We like Star Trek.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the beauties of the show is that we can dive in and pick the best of Star Trek. In my opinion, in my subjective opinion, and skip some of the sketchy stuff. But yeah, I hope that logic makes sense, Squalina. We will be doing some Enterprise. I haven't got a clue when and how to introduce it, but we will at some point. But I think we're going to carry on with a bit of TOS after this jaunt into Deep Space Nine. Okay, Deneé, we had a bit of a break for Thanksgiving. So last week we had an awesome interview with David Ellis. Woohoo! The week before that, we had the Trouble with Tribbles, your first experience with TOS. This week, we're doing a kind of follow-up episode, which is diving into Deep Space Nine Trials and Tribble-ations. First of all, let's have your thoughts about getting back to Deep Space Nine, and then your big and specific predictions.
Okay. I'm nervous to go back to Deep Space Nine because
Me too.
it's a different sort of Star Trek world, and we're jumping in and out. It feels like have a portal gun, Rick and Morty style, and we're just going in and out of different Star Trek universes.
We're interdimensional cabling our Star Trek.
But let me just say I'm fine. It's gonna be fine.
And that's what counts. If you guys at home aren't enjoying this, don't worry, Deneé is fine.
This is either an experiment of how not to introduce your friends to Star Trek, or it's an example of following the conversation and the instinct and just sort of having fun. And so I think it makes sense that we're going to be following the Tribble trail. I wonder after the Tribble trail is done, which may just be this 2 episodes, are we going to do another weird creature one? Is this like a creature season that we're doing? So, because it definitely seems like we're focusing on the weird critters. Maybe they have to be hairy. Maybe it's hairy critter season, guys. So perhaps we're going to go into a deep dive on hairy critters.
Hey, if you want to do hairy critters, I can find some episodes of hairy critters.
Moving on to the second question, the second part. So I'm okay. I'm interested. I'm here for the experience as always. But then the big and then small predictions. My big prediction. I mean, I can't really say that it's going to include tribbles because that feels like a cheat.
Yeah, that would be cheating.
So my big prediction is going to be that it involves a traitor again. I feel like this person that sort of shows up at a space station to trade things is going to be the wink and the nod. Like if you were watching Deep Space Nine and you had never seen you had seen TOS, and this happens, you'd be like, oh my God, that's how it happened in Trouble with Tribbles. So I feel like that'd be kind of a cool thing. My very specific one. Oh, I also was told some stuff. I remember a couple weeks ago when we did the show that there was something about Worf and his history with a Tribble war, which I still feel like you guys are trolling me about. So I don't know if I believe you. I really don't.
The trolling with Tribbles.
The trolling with Tribbles. So my oddly specific thing is that Worf is going to see a Tribble and have an emotional reaction. If it's supposed to be oddly specific, so he's going to have camera zoom to face where his eyes get big and maybe he's like get squinty, and as he's sort of reacting emotionally to a Tribble. I want to believe that he's so frightened he like lets out a toot, but that's never happened in Star Trek, I'm pretty sure.
He's not farting on screen. That is not.
It
I
doesn't
don't
happen.
know that there's ever been a fart in the history of Star Trek. Okay, I love those predictions. This is one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek. It's one of my favorite episodes of Deep Space Nine for sure.
Wow.
I cannot talk about this episode without potentially spoiling it. I clearly can't have any predictions. So let's head over to the holodeck, get this episode going, and we'll see you all in 10 forward for a debrief. 2 to be male.
I want to walk.
Tough. Welcome to 10 Forward, the part of the show where we grab a drink from the replicator and share our immediate thoughts and feelings on the episode we just watched together. Most important question first, what is your beverage of choice? Don't ask for Rectigino because I don't know what it is. It hasn't been invented yet.
Well, let's just not call anything that sounds like rectum anyway. Rectum Gino.
It doesn't sound like rectum.
That did. It sounded like rectum Gino.
Rectigino. It's a Klingon coffee beverage.
Well, for somebody who doesn't want me to ask about it, you sure do want to talk about it.
No, I
specifically.
walked into that. I did. That's my fault.
I want fish juice. Hot fish juice.
I don't know. I don't
Please.
want anything now because I'm just going to vomit. Give us a synopsis.
Oh my God. Well, what are you having? You didn't say what you were having.
No, I don't. You put me off. Warm fish juice put me off.
But that's a Kardashian. Yeah.
Kardashian.
Cian or Sheehan?
Cian. Kardashians are the other ones.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Are you serious?
One is a group of reptile-like creatures that feed off society and are really, really horrible. The other ones are the alien species in Star Trek.
What?
Way.
Was that something for the nerds?
No, that was some Kardashian bashing. So what I did is that I described the Kardashians in a really, really horrible way, but shifted that to be about the Kardashians.
I don't know what to do anymore. So are they two different? Are you trolling me? What is happening?
So do you know the Kardashians?
Cians. You said that they were
right,
Cians.
No, but the Americans, the TV show Kardashians.
Oh.
Two different things. Kardashians. Come on, there we go.
Now I get it.
My goodness, give us a synopsis quick.
I was about to get really mad at Star Trek. Like, why do you have two different aliens that are so similar?
So you thought I was describing two different aliens? Oh no!
And you have the entire. You can make up anything you want, and you put two that are so. I genuinely didn't get it.
This is amazing. This is
I don't have
beautiful.
to get everything.
This is the best.
Hot fish juice.
Yeah.
Synopsis of today's episode is that we wanted to do a Forrest Gump, and so DS9 Forrest Gumped its way through the trouble with tribbles.
A little bit.
That is what has happened. In today's episode, the crew of Deep Space Nine Station Defiant. I don't know what they are, but it doesn't matter. This is my description of what I think.
I'm not going to help.
They accidentally find themselves back in space because the human Klingon, which is not explained very well at all in this episode, decides to push a button or something and launch them back in time. Why? Because he wants to blow up the Tribble station to become a hero, even though he would have died and no one would have known that he was a hero anyway.
Yeah.
That's a sin for later that I'll forget about that I just thought of. The fun part of this episode is that we get to rewatch last week's episode pretty much all over again.
You get to watch it twice.
But this time with characters that you love if you've watched Deep Space Nine. For those of us who haven't watched Deep Space Nine, it was rewatching the episode again with new people shuffled in like a deck of Star Trek cards.
Seamless.
Well, we find out that they saved the day, though, and that's okay. And now we have the most burning question of Star Trek answered. How were the Tribbles falling out of the Tribble hole in last week's episode?
Now we know. We often, in content, we dip back into origin stories that we don't need, and that was the only one in Star Trek I ever needed answered, and they did it.
Yep, that's it.
It's amazing. Well, did you, I know the answer to this. Did you like this episode of Star Trek, Deneé?
I did. I had a really good time on this episode.
Isn't it fun?
There was a couple of times I checked to see how much longer we had. It did get a little bit long for me. A couple of times I felt like the dip in the momentum. But it's really easy to tell that this is gonna be a fan favorite.
Oh yeah.
For anyone who loves Deep Space Nine and TOS, obviously, because they're taking the characters from this one and they're putting them into an epic episode from the original series. So it was really delightful. It was fun to see how they used technology to insert their characters into the original series episode. That was really delightful. Like the first moment that they beam on board and they're in that new filter. Not just the clothes, but like the new filter stuff.
They're just loving it.
Was a real delight. And then, you're watching them fumble their way through old technology. And there's just some really funny beats in this one. There's some good humor. And you don't have to know the crew to catch what their personalities are doing.
Yeah.
I think a burning question that people who've listened to every episode of Captain's Pod and are familiar with the last time that I watched a Deep Space Nine episode, those people, I'm talking to you, I still don't like Dax.
No, to be fair, this isn't her shining moment. She's
She's so fucking horny.
She's very horny in this episode. That is her defining character trait in this. It's like, oh, I had a thing with him. Oh, I had a thing with him. Oh, isn't he attractive? Yeah. She got to use her brain. She did the calculations.
I mean, yeah, that was impressive. She does know math. That was nice. It wasn't like I don't hate her as much as I did last time I saw her, but I haven't warmed to her entirely.
No.
She's just like a little, she's like a kid. She's like a kid that had to be led away from every candy aisle.
And I think because she's like 1,000 years old, no, I think she's like 300 years old or something. Everything is a little trivial to her. Like everything is a little bit, this will pass. Like this will come and go. I've been through this. Aren't you people with your short lifespans really funny?
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, this is such a fun episode. It was the kind of like 30th anniversary tribute to Star Trek. So they knew they wanted to do this going in. And it's just incredible, some of the stuff that they managed to pull off in 1996. I don't know if you meant to do this, but it was actually inspired by Forrest Gump. And
how would I do that on purpose? I have no idea what this stuff is.
This came out 2 years after Forrest Gump. And it was inspired by that technique, but it was like, we're not going to do a ton of behind the scenes stuff, but from what I've read, it was painstaking. They got the original negatives from that episode. They upscaled them to look better, downscaled some of the Deep Space Nine stuff. I mean, let's dive into that. So one of my favorite moments from the episode was redoing the bar fight. And Deneé was just giggling throughout the bar fight on the space station, and O'Brien and Bashir getting stuck in the middle of it as well, and Worf and Odo. And as we get towards the end of the bar fight, Deneé's like, they're going to be in the briefing. They're going to get told off by Kirk. Are they going to be in the lineup? And I'm like, hush, shoosh, just wait. How they did that was so clever. It's so seamless. It's so good.
Yeah, it was really, really fun. I remember watching Forrest Gump for the first time, and it was such a delight to see this character fumble his way through history and be in these historic moments as this sort of side character that would be in the background. And in this case, it was the same kind of thing where Odo is painted or like brought in digitally somehow in this beautiful merger into the background, while in the foreground you see Uhura, falling in love with the Tribble for the first time, and there's Odo in the background. And it was really, really special. I thought it was a really neat thing. And even though it's painstaking, like sometimes you say yes to a project and then in hindsight,
I shouldn't have done this.
You just don't realize the undertaking. Like when you buy a house without really getting a great inspection, and then you pull up the floors and you realize you have to do
I got some work to do.
Yeah.
Apparently the hardest one was the scene towards the end where Kirk is on the bridge and he's getting pissy at all of the Tribbles, and Dax is just walking in the background, and Kirk turns to her, kind of does the shrug thing, and Dax does a reply shrug. Apparently that was the hardest one to actually get right.
Because the timing has to be right.
It. The timing's got to be perfect. The lighting is one of the hardest things to get right in these things as well. I can't imagine it being done any better today. Like if you get that wrong, it's so distracting, but I've got to say it's worth it.
That's
it's
part
so
of
great.
The beauty of it too is you've got, there's sometimes when we get really distracted by like the writing, because it's really well written. And so we're like, not distracted. That's not the right word. Well, sometimes it is distracting. I'm meaning more we focus on the writing as a really good script or really good acting choice. Like somebody just to camera has this most beautiful reaction on screen. We talk a lot about that. Or the set design, which we could talk about here. The set design is fantastic.
Oh, for sure.
Just recreate this element. But rarely do we remember the cameraman, the person that's trying to make sure the lighting is correct. And in an episode like this, when there's so many of those details that matter, when you're trying to match something that was created in the 60s, that's so fun to think about. Somebody in the chat mentioned that there was a camera lens that was used that was actually the ones that they used in the 60s to help create that effect. So for those people to have this beautiful craft that they're doing and then they get to use this old camera, it's almost reminiscent of the Deep Space Nine characters really enjoying their comm materials, and like they're really having a fun time in this episode using those older things where like we can't really make it bigger because then we'll set off an alarm, or when Sisko goes to tap his comm badge.
I lose that every time because it's so confident. He just goes slap, and there's like a few seconds where he's just like, why isn't anybody talking to me? And then pulls out his communicator. It's so natural.
Can we talk about my prediction before we get too much further in? Because I once again am amazing. And
Deneé is pretty good. She's pretty spooky with this stuff. She has the antenna for it. Deneé's overall prediction was that it involves a traitor again, but this time, because we've shifted from K7 to Deep Space Nine, they're both space stations, the traitor would be on Deep Space Nine, so it's more of a mirror episode rather than re-inhabiting it. So if you'd have guessed that the same traitor exactly was involved, I'd have given you that.
That would have been crazy.
It's so
great. I don't think I got the overall prediction. I assumed that it would be Tribbles on Deep Space Nine, although that does happen. So I think I might be able to get a half point.
No. Your very specific prediction was that Worf will see a Tribble and have a camera zoom to the face, his eyes get big and then squinty. There was a half zoom. There was 100% a zoom. When Odo pulls out the Tribble, we do get a zoom on his eyes as he reacts. So I think you did really well. You did really well.
I was freaking out. I was like, here it comes, here it comes. He's reacting to the Tribble. And it's funny because I had just remembered that we talked about a mention in Deep Space Nine from Worf about this Tribble war situation. And so that is what prompted it. What was really fun is that scene was in that same moment when he's explaining the history of the Tribble battle and he's getting some shit from Odo. So
I love that so much. Like, how did... What were you expecting? Because you were giggling so hard when the waitress comes along and says the Klingons, and Odo, Bashir, and O'Brien are like, "What do you mean Klingons? I don't see any Klingons." And they all just turn to Worf because they're like, "That ain't you, my friend. What's going on?" Like,
wow,
you were giggling at that moment.
There are some humor punches in this episode that really got me, and it's because we just watched the other episode that I really like. I'm super familiar. If this was months, even, years removed, I don't think it would have had the same impact on me whatsoever. Plus, we have really interesting conversations on this show and like in the chat and our live shows. So there's a lot of like little trivia that I learn. And so I'm sitting here and I know we've talked about Klingons looking different. And we talked about that last week, and that it's just sort of this nebulous explanation. But seeing it all, there's something really fun about dropping into a series.
Yeah.
And it's clear that in season 5, this crew and these actors are in sync with each other.
Yes.
They're pacing with each other, the humor, the back and forth way that they talk together. It feels really real and normal and like an everyday sort of a thing. So I wasn't feeling awkward and displaced. I was just like dropping into their universe. But what was interesting is they were dropped into another universe too. So it was like there was a little bit of shared like what's going on vibe between me and the characters. But I also understood the reference. So I was very grounded. And so it really helped this episode sing for me. And those humor moments are definitely one of them. Also getting to see their love, like we talked about Sisko using the tricorder. He was so giddy and happy. So it was fun to see these characters have a good time.
They're being
while
the fans
they're doing this.
of Star Trek while they're in it. It's such a great way to pay tribute on like an anniversary. And so
that
fun.
humor hit for me. The humor of the Doctor in the turbo lift with O'Brien when he's thinking he's in some sort of a paradox where he has to fuck his ancestor. killed me.
Literally explaining the grandfather paradox to O'Brien, and O'Brien's just like, I don't care. We're not doing this.
It was so funny because the humor beat was that their ship, whatever, the Defiant says, "Are you ready to be beamed in?" And O'Brien's like, "We sure are." like, he was so frustrated. And I just this nuance between these characters, like Worf and Odo and O'Brien and the Doctor, and then you've got Sisko and Horny. They're just really like, it's just all kind of sitting on these levels. Then they come together in this beat, in this moment where they're sitting, and I know there's a bar fight. I know these things are happening here. And when when Klingons are brought up, I was like, oh please, like you have to do something about. And they all just sort of like, they're like, Klingons, where are the Klingons? And I'm giggling because I'm like, I get that, because that was my reaction last time. And then they look around, and then the lady's like, you guys have had too much to drink. They're right over there. Camera glances over, Joke sits in, but then they all slowly, like you could hear like a creaking of their necks, like look over at Worf.
Worf just trying to disappear.
It was so funny. And it was like Worf was representing the canon of the series. Yes. Where we don't want to talk about this. And he literally says, I can't talk about it.
We don't talk about it with outsiders.
Yeah.
So when I watched this as a kid, like very, very young, I was like, finally, because it had always bugged my child brain that they look different. Like now I know, I understand logically why they look different. But for the show to internally address it, I was always like, in my brain, the TOS Klingons do look like TNG Klingons to everybody in the universe. They have ridges, they have different uniforms. It's purely because we're in different times that they look different. But them being there and acknowledging that, no, these look like humans, I'm just like, well, I can't ignore that. That's in the universe that they look different. And I was like, well, it's fine because Worf's going to explain it and I'll finally have an answer.
It's so funny because when they look over and they're like, are those Klingons? They are. It's like,
they are.
He was almost
so
reluctant.
Yes.
And then they're like, what happened? They're so concerned. Genetic engineering, you know, and this is right after the beat of, I think, O'Brien being incredibly confident that it was Kirk sitting at the adjacent table when it was not.
Excellent. It's so
just these
great.
Silly things that they sprinkle in.
Yeah.
It did a bit set me off because I'm like, I feel the clock of this. The entire premise of this episode is that this spy survived this moment 100-some years ago. He was trying to usurp this moment. He's in the original episode. He survives that. He's been in hiding for over 100 years until an opportunity struck to go back in time and change the outcome so he's a hero instead of an outcast. That's kind of the premise of this episode. And it just gets lost in the fan fun. And that's okay.
Yes.
But there's a casualness and like a giddy, like Sisko is essentially in Disneyland.
Oh,
and
all of them are. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and Dax is like, let's go visit this area. And
forget the mission. I want to meet my buddy, Koloth, who I should not talk to at all.
At all, yeah. And instead, they're, well, what are you doing to find this person who is most likely going to try to kill somebody? But I let that go pretty quickly because I was having a good time, and I knew something was going to happen. And then, the rise, the big moment is, of course, this juxtaposition of Dax and Sisko chucking the tribbles out of the weed bin.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
And them hitting Kirk in the face, and that was really, really fun. But for sure, the biggest laugh for me was Worf explaining Klingons, and then the bar fight again, and just the joy of seeing O'Brien being, berated by Kirk. That was
so
I think
great.
The highlight for me for sure.
And then he has an excellent at CinemaSins moment where he walks out and he's like, of all the people in the room, he talks to me. Yep, you got pretty unlucky, buddy. But the way they put Bashir and O'Brien in that lineup is so impressive.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it looks so
seamless. Good. It's really well done.
There's a shot where, Kirk is talking to, I think it's their doctor, the one that had the bruise thing on his face that we talked about last week from the original. Chekhov. Okay, so he's talking to Chekhov. And the way that it's framed is you have Kirk kind of standing side face to camera, and a little bit of the shoulder of the person wearing the red uniform is in front of his body,
Mm-hmm.
and then the rest of that person is behind his body, and it's face on to Chekhov. And in this case, they replaced that person with O'Brien.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wondering if they actually had, like, the front half was the original person and the back half where we see O'Brien's face. That stuff fascinates me. Like, of course it took forever. It had to look perfect because it could have looked like shit so easily. Yeah.
And lots of people have written about it. Like, I would recommend, we're not doing a huge amount of behind the scene stuff because there have been many articles written about it, but I would go out there and read up on it because how they pulled like the sets together, the editing together this was an ordeal.
Well, I liked too that they zoomed in on Kirk whenever he sits on the Tribble and then he mashes the button on his console, because I'm pretty sure that the one we watched before was a more zoomed out version of the bridge because I couldn't see what he was mashing.
Yes.
And this time I saw that everything in the TOS is just a big square solid yellow panel, a big square solid green thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's so geometrical pattern and just one color. It on his little button masher, it's just a big square green button.
Yeah.
So it really makes me understand how much maybe easier, I'm going to say the word easy and it is not easy. Please don't think how much easier it is to recreate it, whether for this show, well, that in that moment, it was actually from the original series imagery. But for the people who have recreated it, that were just researching that one production company that's remade the bridge. You just have to find a big square Lego and you're good.
Yeah, just go for it. There was an article that I read that said the stuff that they used to build the set in the 60s was super cheap. It would be like everything was under $5. But to recreate it in the 90s cost thousands of dollars because they don't make that shit anymore. And they were just, hey, that's in a thrift store. Let's pick it up and put it on the bridge. And it was so expensive to recreate some of those sets. It's just amazing. It's so worth it. Oh, I love it so much.
Yeah, I super had a good time. I think it was really fun also to use this as a Deep Space Nine episode because I think this was a good way to be introduced to the vibe of these characters.
It honestly is.
In the last one, it was a bit more serious because it was like a Worf wedding and everything kind of seemed really serious. Yeah. This one was fun and the lightness of their relationship kind of shone through. You know, you've got this kind of Sisko person who's maybe not entirely by the books, but he is in like a kind of a cool cash way. Yeah. I don't know. It was interesting to try to get to know him. O'Brien, though. O'Brien and Worf. I could watch those two all day long.
O'Brien and Bashir? O'Brien and Worf? When were they interacting?
They didn't. That's when I would perk up. I'm like,
them. Right, got it.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. They were great additions to Deep Space Nine. I mean, pulling O'Brien in from day one was genius. And having Worf jump in is so much fun. It's interesting that like the Bashir and O'Brien kind of barbing relationship. O'Brien hates Bashir in the first couple of seasons, and Bashir is just consistently there, just like, I'm going to be your best friend. I'm going to be your best friend. And by now they are best friends, and they are such a interesting duo together. They have so many fun episodes.
There was that beat where they're trying to scan some stuff and an actual ensign comes around the corner. It's like, why are you here? You know, and aren't you a doctor? Why are you scanning? And they have to make something up. Maybe I don't know how that felt to make it. I don't know if they had a little bit of ad lib openness or something, but you could feel that it was O'Brien. Like, yeah, buddy, how are you going to get out of this one?
And then, good luck, my friend.
Bashir.
Yeah. Bashir.
Bashir says, like, yeah, you know, I'm here for a mental health break, right? And that you can kind of see they're both almost okay with getting each other into trouble because they just have this barbing relationship.
They should be far more concerned considering the relationship they're in. I do love
100%.
O'Brien when he pulls the thing, just going to pull this down. And you know what? We're just going to leave it right where it was because that's where it needs to be.
Yeah, they have a really great comedic timing and they just sit in the silence a bit. O'Brien didn't jump in and try to explain anything. He's just watching his buddy go, yeah, what are you going to talk about? And I really enjoyed that.
As long as we don't get arrested.
I can feel that relationship with Sisko as well, with Dax, where they've known each other for a while. Like when Sisko said something about old man was when I remembered that Dax is like this reincarnated being or something, like this host person who's been around for. And I kind of remembered part of it, but oh, yes.
She's had multiple bodies. Yeah.
You're horny for a reason.
Yes. She's been around a lot. So when the episode kicks off, we start with the Department for Temporal Affairs agents turning up. What was going through your head? Like when they turn up and you're like, what's going on here? Why are they here? What are we doing? I think it's a really fun way to frame the episode.
It's a great way to start the episode, but not knowing. My note was literally, I'll just read it to you. Old men in a Department of Temporal Investigations. Boy, they look boring. But don't worry, Sisko has an interesting mug.
He does.
Yeah, he does.
Mug.
And then I wrote down something about like put down baseball. I remember baseball was important. Like, so these are just my weird men. They want the truth. They why did you go back in time? And then I realized they're there because they're like part of an investigation, and they're the begrudged people who are forced to investigate and hear the same thing. And I kind of felt like if I was a Star Trek person, I would really like these characters because they sort of point out some frustrating commonalities between episodes, and they're kind of tired of hearing the same excuse over and over again. Like, I would have been the first to notice when I got back. So how many times have I heard that?
Yeah.
I mean,
is that a joke about time? I don't like those.
Yeah, they're very picky. The disgruntled office workers who have to investigate time travel issues is kind of a fun thing.
I love it so much because the fact that they're disgruntled and frustrated about something that's really, really fun. So I can imagine that they're fed up of like these rogue captains like Janeway and Kirk, Picard and Sisko. They keep finding themselves accidentally meddling with time, something that they've trained for years and years and years to kind of get right and to monitor. And then these untrained people are just like meddling in time travel, and then they have to go and map out what could have changed, what happened, what is different because of the things that they did. And like, what a frustrating job it genuinely must be.
It must be.
To pick up the pieces afterwards.
But I felt that they did a good job of only having them in the right spots. A little bit in the middle, a little bit at the end, and then we're moving on. So this was a way to have an episode that's like 17 hours earlier, but without
you don't
actually
have to have that. Yeah.
So we're kind of dropped into a moment trying to figure out what happened. And I think that would have been really fun to watch this not knowing what to expect for the first time.
Yeah.
Because you don't know that you're going back until that screen clears up and you see the Enterprise. So do you remember the first time that you watched this episode? Do you remember how it felt?
I remember the feeling. So I'd watched Deep Space Nine before I'd watched the original series. So this didn't have, so we're talking like when I was 9, 10, 11. So this didn't have exactly the same impact. I watched TNG first, then Voyager, then Deep Space Nine, then the original series. But I can only imagine how cool it must have been after 30 years of being kind of off the air to have the original, the Enterprise, appear on screen. And that dramatic reveal is so good. It's so fun. But I remember being fixated on the Klingons, but I don't remember specifically the Enterprise turning up. But I like that they didn't mess with it. They just used the original footage.
I did too. I like that they used a lot of the original footage. And I had an opportunity to add my helicopter noises. What did you think of that?
Yep. Incredible helicopter noise. I love it.
Would have been really, really fun. I feel like the tension of like the characters attempting to hold back their excitement to go and that was
like
that was really
they're all very calm about being 100 years in the past. It's like, it's fine, we'll get back home. Not to worry, it's fine. I do love in that moment how the TOS theme morphs into the Deep Space Nine theme. I'm always listening out for the score, and when the Enterprise appears on the screen, you get the bum, 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 and then it just kind of moves into the Deep Space Nine score after that. Oh, I love it when they do that stuff. It gets to me. Off. Well, hit me with some questions, Ambassador. Anything lingering?
My question is, in what universe can you call your captain Benjamin? Like, is this a normal thing on this episode, or
Yes.
is she just a terrible person?
No. So Dax and Sisko have an interesting relationship. Their entire arc is really, really fun. So Jadzia's previous host, Curzon, was a mentor to Sisko while he was at the academy and as he was going up through the ranks. So he always refers to him as old man because he was his mentor, his guide. And so they kind of have that father-son relationship where he would call him Benjamin. Now, Curzon dies and becomes Jadzia, and Jadzia is now working underneath Benjamin, but they're similar kind of ages, so they're kind of on the same level. So it's just
Who's
this.
Jadzia?
Jadzia is the lady. Jadzia Dax.
Oh, okay. So Dax is Jadzia. I remember that now. Okay.
Yeah. So Dax is
I hear you, DS9 fans, screaming at me. I hear you.
Dax is the symbiote, and Jadzia is the current host. And Curzon was the previous host, who was this old man who guided Benjamin. So they have this really familiar thing between them. So that's why Jadzia gets away with calling him Benjamin.
But does Dax realize it's a dick move?
I don't think it's a dick move. I think she's earned that. And I think Sisko would tell her if he didn't like it.
Listen, and this is just a personal preference. Let's just talk for a second. When you have worked for your lifespan to earn a title of some kind, like doctor or captain, and you're not called that, I just feel like it's very disrespectful.
Depending on who's doing it, yeah.
So, for example, I have a friend of mine, but whenever I see her in public, I call her doctor, so that there is just this, like, I say, hello, Dr. So-and-so. Even though I know her first name, I could text her right now. We could hang out, right? But that is when I'm in public. Now, when we're in private, and actually recently we had a chat. We had a meeting with somebody. We were talking about some ideas, and I was doing some consulting on some stuff. And there was another person in the room. And it was like we were all going to be collaborating together for a while. And so I asked her, I said, do you want me to call you Dr. So-and-so, or do you want me to call you your first name? And gave her that option. So it's like, and
I guarantee Dax and Sisko have had the same discussion.
Can you guarantee it?
I'm sure they have. And I think more often than not, it happens in private. She does address him as captain. But in those more personal moments, she says Benjamin, and he would shut her down. Like, Sisko would have no problem saying, you call me captain. And I'm sure there's an occasion where she fucks up. And he's like, I'm captain now.
This is my point. I just want to know, because I'm having no context for this. So I'm watching her like, wow, that seems really disrespectful. Now, if they've conversed about it, and he's like, yep, not only is it okay that you call me Benjamin, but everybody in the crew knows they can't call me Benjamin. It's a specialty thing. That still upsets me a little bit, like a little bit of special privilege. But, you know, the same, I don't know, it just feels a little bit out of place to me, but that's part of it. There's a little me bit being dropped into this world.
Picard wouldn't let that fly, for sure. Like, and I think that's what we're used to, the very strict military aspect. But there's a lot of Sisko that begrudges Starfleet for a lot of reasons. So I think
he Starfleet?
He's Starfleet. Yeah, he's 100% Starfleet. But he begrudges Starfleet for a number of reasons.
Is the space station a Starfleet space station?
Technically, yes. So the space station is built by the Cardassians, and they were using it to occupy and to mine Bajor. When they were kicked off, Starfleet were allowed in to kind of protect the Bajorans from another invasion happening. So they run it with the Bajorans. It's a joint operation, but Sisko is in command.
Okay. So I am then meant to assume that everything is okay.
Yes.
It's okay. It's okay.
I get it though. It is jarring. Like, if you don't know any of that background, like, but then Beverly does it to Picard. Beverly calls him Jean-Luc.
I don't like it. I don't.
That's amazing.
I don't like it. I like when
it's that familiarity, isn't
when
it?
It's not on the brain. Like, if it's like we're working, it just feels like there's just this like elevated. I'm in my position. I've got my title. Let's just say about my personality. If I had a title, I would want people to call me that title in certain situations, certain circumstances and situations, and and then Deneé is fine in others. But I think it would just. I like to know. Sometimes I'm in boss mode, and sometimes I'm in chill mode, and and a name kind of helps you know where you're at. But that was a casual scene anyway. They were sort of like, he even said he was halfway home and he was starting to relax. So maybe that was the vibe they were trying to go for. It
definitely is situational, and not everybody would do it. And I genuinely think that he would probably feel uncomfortable with her calling him captain the entire time, because like she still has the memories of Curzon and all of those other people. So that status thing is probably a little bit unnecessary. I was like, dude, you taught me everything I know. Don't call me captain unless it's crunch time.
Okay.
But yeah, it's an interesting point, and it is a deliberate difference that distinguishes her from the rest of the crew for sure.
Yeah, it's just a weird thing. I think everybody has different opinions, but on a show where I'm used to seeing the captain being called the captain, that was like, wait, who's a Benjamin? Why?
Who's a Benjamin?
Is that a new? Is that a new rank? Is Benjamin a rank?
Yeah.
I did have
Benjamin Sisko as a rank. Yes.
Yeah.
Benjamin Picard. Any other burning questions?
I wrote one down early in my notes, and it was just, my Klingon is going to see human Klingons. What is Worf going to do? But that actually ended up answering itself, which was really fun.
Can you imagine if they didn't address it? That would be so frustrating, wouldn't it?
It would have been. Yeah. I think that was one of my most burning questions, was trying to figure that particular part out. So we can move on now.
Well, there's a really cool touch where they brought back the same actor to play Darwin. I had his name and he's run away. Charlie Brill. So same actor that played the original administrator that was doing the dodginess. They brought him back to play the same character again. That's just a really, really cool touch.
It really, really is. It's fun to be able to pick a character that is connecting them back to that time as well. There's just really quirky references too that I'm just now remembering. When they realize that he's a Klingon in disguise, someone's like, wow, they've done really good with their alterations. But I forgot that the Klingons looked human until we got kind of further in the episode and was remembering what I was about to see. So
it's really, really interesting, because they would assume a lot more work was done than had actually been done.
Oh, I did have another question. So
go for it.
There were 17 temporal violations from Captain Kirk, the Menace, as these people called. Is that there's a couple times that those old guys, the temporal people, were seeming to mention some stuff that was like super inside. There was a correction about 6 or 7 enterprises, something like that. Like they corrected themselves.
Yeah, there have been 5 enterprises, and then no, there's actually 6. Yeah.
So is that a deep reference that I would be missing?
So I've thought about this as well, because Star Trek Enterprise, the TV show, hadn't happened yet. And because it's a prequel, it kind of messes with the numbering a little bit. So in theory, you've got the Enterprise, Kirk's one. You've got the Enterprise A, the Enterprise B, C, D, which is Picard's Enterprise. That's 5. And at this point, the Enterprise D has been blown up because that happens before Worf joins Deep Space Nine. So,
and that's like the incident that we don't talk about.
No. We know that the Enterprise D blew up. We know that.
But we don't know how.
We do know how. We do know how. It's the Enterprise E that Worf blew up, and we don't know how.
That's the one. That's the one. So Worf is like the guy that they just put stuff underneath and sweep it under the rug. Like,
exactly.
We don't talk about tribbles.
We don't talk about that.
We don't 100%. Talk about Klingons and what they look like, and we don't talk about this ship blowing. There's 3.
So I think the 6 was either because they had a feeling that Enterprise was going to be in the works, or it's because the Enterprise E is currently under construction, and I don't think it's been built yet. And I think they don't count the Star Trek Enterprise because it was an NX. So when you, this is so nerdy, when you're an NX-01 or an NX something, you're an experimental ship. So you're not officially named. So in theory, when you move from an NX to an NCC, the name of the ship could potentially change. So when they say 5 or 6 and they count however many enterprises there have been, they don't count the NXs, which is how we get away with Enterprise breaking canon a little bit. That'll make sense in a few years.
Yeah, so they're writing the script out, and then there's future knowledge of what's coming out, and they're having this exact conversation, and so they just write in 5, no, 6, because they are time travelers too, so it's kind of a funny thing that they could do that. So
and
yeah, that was another
Contact,
question I had.
I don't think First Contact has come out yet, but they know it's happening. So I think that 5/6 was to cover their necks because they know there's another Enterprise on the way.
Got it.
Woof.
Woo! Okay. Next question.
Yes.
How does somebody wipe the transporter logs after they beam?
Oh, we'll get into the sins if you want to do that.
Okay.
That's right in the
Let's do
sins.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to go over, actually. I love this episode so much. Actually, I love the ending in particular. Like how do you end an episode like this? And it's just beautiful to have Odo just pondering his fuck up. Like, I guess we have tribbles now. And just the slow pan out. It's such a beautiful ending.
It really is, because it's kind of a nod to the first one where someone just wants to have the cute cuddly thing. But poor Worf, right?
He doesn't want to be on that. He immediately gets a transfer. He's like, this is why he's on the Enterprise E for First Contact. Because he's like, nope, fuck those tribbles.
How much better of an ending would it have been if it slow pans out of the 10 forward area or the bar or whatever, and it kind of goes down the hallway through a door, and you just see Worf putting on his battle gear. And
that would be brilliant. Oh my goodness! If it's just we're all heading to the promenade to go and meet Quark, and he's just like getting his gear and bat'leth on. That would be amazing. Just ends with him running through the ship. Oh, that's amazing. And it's kind of the same ending as the original episode, because the Romulans are in a similar the Klingons are in a similar situation where they'll walk into their engine room and suddenly find a ton of tribbles.
Any Klingon is gonna. Well, actually, I'm trying to, like, in my imagination, would there be Klingons more than Worf on Deep Space Nine, or is Worf still like the exception?
Oh, okay, got it. I don't know exactly what the Klingons are doing at this point in the season. They switch sides a couple of times, but yeah, there's no reason for. There could be other Klingons on Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I got the impression that there was Klingon trouble in the Deep Space Nine timeline of some kind before going back in time and having that trouble.
There is a war going on at the minute between the Federation and the Cardassians, and the Klingons are working with Starfleet. So I think that's what they're talking about. Like, he's stranded on Cardassia because they've been attacked by they're getting attacked by everyone at the minute.
Okay. Anyway, I still think that Worf needs to be like just coming out in all of his battle gear and just murdering fuzzballs.
Yeah, just absolutely ready. He has a purpose. Yeah, absolutely love that episode. It's a great anniversary special. It's a beautiful piece of just TV technology as well.
It was great.
Yeah, I love that you had a good time with it.
It's a historical episode for sure.
Okay, Ambassador, before we get into the sinning, we won't spend much time on it. I promise I will protect your brain. How many pips out of 4 for Trials and Tribulations?
4 pips!
4 pips? Yes!
Pip, hooray!
For me, it's a 4 pipper as well. Yes, some of like the plot stuff is a bit droopy, but it's such a fun episode. The level of difficulty is through the roof. It goes down in history as an incredible, incredible episode. 4 pips out of 4. Having said that, it of course has sins. So let's head over to engineering. Battle stations, everyone. Red alert.
Warning. Warp core collapse in 10 seconds.
This is the part of the show where we re-engage our sin brains and remind ourselves that no TV shows without sin, even our beloved Star Trek. Ambassador, you go first.
Okay, I think the one that made me most upset is the one that I'm going to start with, and it is just the absolute batshit non-scientific way that they're searching for that bomb.
It's incredible.
When they're in on the space station, and Odo is just like scan Chuck, scan Chuck, scan Chuck. I'm just like, this is a terrible way.
You've got to organize them. How do you know you're not going to be scanning that one again? Like, just chuck them out. No wonder funny. It's taking you so long.
It's comedy. If there wasn't an imminent explosion happening, then I probably would have enjoyed it a little bit more because it was just haphazard. But I'm just watching everybody, like, people are chucking tribbles into each other's tribble pile.
It's just that it's such an inefficient way of doing it. It's like remember in Lower Decks when they're doing the isolinear chips all in the same room and they're scanning all of them. I now feel like that was a nod to how they scan the tribbles.
Yep.
In that moment as well, there is some utter nonsense. Like the reason that they have to scan them one by one is because it's a very specific signature. Until Dax and Sisko go into the storage compartment, and she said, "Oh, I'm picking up a tricobalt signature. It's around here somewhere." What do you mean it's around here somewhere? That means Odo and Worf could know that it's around here somewhere, or know that
not.
it isn't around here somewhere, and stop scanning. Like, the whole point is that you can't do a vague scanning thing. You have to get specific. Just science changing for tension.
My next big sin is it kind of undermines the original episode, because in the original episode there is security all over those wheat bins.
Yes.
But now we have Sisko and Dax just like, clunk, 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 clunking down inside of them. And
no biggie.
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought that they would have had to have had a clever way of distracting the security team or something, but we just kind of skipped over that part. But it was a really specific part of the last episode, which was like, don't question Kirk and his security team. They've got this under control, but they obviously don't.
They're just roaming around, touching everything. What? And there is a little missed opportunity in that moment where back in the day, I thought that they might, or I was hoping that they would lock the door from the inside, and that's why Kirk can't get into it, because we never really know why that bottom storage bin is locked. Like, the reason for the story is that we want all of the tribbles to fall on Kirk. We don't really know why he can't open it, and I was really hoping that Sisko would like remotely lock the door so that he has to get to the open one. Can you just imagine him pushing against the side and Kirk's trying to open it? So, it would have been beautiful.
That was a really fun one.
Yeah, it would be great.
There was quite a few sins for me at the very end, so I'll just stay kind of on those. So they find the bomb, and Sisko says to lock onto his tricorder location and beam it into space.
Yeah.
But the tricorder has more than one surface. It doesn't just have what's on top of it. There's what's beside it. There's what's below it. But only one tribble is yeeted out to space. I think it would have been more accurate to see the tricorder and every tribble touching a surface of it.
Touching all of it.
Beamed out to space. It's fine. They were all dead anyway. And then they just explode. So that was one of them.
I don't know. I mean, they were all dead anyway. But I still think we would have had letters written in for killing imaginary tribbles in imaginary space.
I think that the people of Star Trek are prepared for those conversations.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's just the day job.
One little disclaimer at the end. No tribble was harmed in the making of this film.
Also, tribbles aren't real, you lunatics.
They're not
real. It's still in the tribble moment stuff is just the convenient bomb timer, the ticking tock that gets to the end of the episode. There are so many better ways to do this. Like, just blow it up. Just forget the timer, blow it up. Like, Darwin set himself up for failure twice. He just fluffed this so bad. Imagine going back in time, having all the information about how everything happened, all of the timing, you delete your own transporter trace, somebody drops a time orb on your lap, and you're just like, I get to use this and go back in time. He's done the hard part. The easy part is killing Kirk and changing the timeline, and he fucks it. And he has to mess it up because he can't win.
He can't.
But it's just unbelievable. He should have won. The bad guy should have won.
Yeah, he had all of the advantage.
Yeah.
Although it was really clever that he sees him in the distance in the fight behind his actual character.
Yes, that was really cool.
Neat.
That must have been so weird to see on screen.
It
like
must
the
have.
actor to watch that.
Such
must
a
have been
wild thing.
Your turn.
My next one is also in that moment that the explosion wasn't noticed by the Enterprise in space. I think that would be
Not
something that they
questioned.
would have picked up.
Not
right?
questioned. Like, or the Klingons didn't question it and just like, what are you doing,
Nobody.
Enterprise attack?
Right. I understand that. I think the Defiant was cloaked the whole time.
Yeah, the Defiant is cloaked.
Okay.
Yeah, convenient cloaking device. Yeah.
But the explosion wasn't cloaked.
Nope.
And it seemed like it was pretty close, definitely
Yeah.
in scanning range. I mean, they have
Yeah.
scanners that scan for so long, so that there's this explosion in space and nobody sees it. Was a
Yeah,
little
but the
bit,
Enterprise scanners have a gap in them, which is my next sin, the convenient scanning gap. There's always in Star Trek some cycling thing. So the shields either do like this power cycle, the scanners do a power cycle, and that always allows a gap for us to beam through. So yeah, just what kind of cliche did I call that? It was gap in the sensor cycle cliche. Allows O'Brien and everybody to beam in.
I did not buy the ending with the temporal agents very, very well.
Oh, what, just being okay with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Because there's a chance that Kirk would have been interested in Sisko beyond just that exchange, instead of it feeling like more of a handshake from from a lieutenant to the beloved captain. It could have been like, who was that guy? Bring up his client, like bring up his file, you know. It could have done all kinds of things that would be really different. Like it could have sent them on a mission to figure out who that person was. It could have accidentally started an incident. Now, of course,
what if this became like a Moby Dick thing that Kirk never let go of?
Yeah. And they're super casual about it because they understand the desire to meet a hero. But that's directly against that is breaking the rule intentionally rather than accidentally. And the premise of this episode was that there was accidental breakage first, but then there's intentional, both with the Tribbles being taken and then also with Kirk being talked to. And I just felt like the agents were just like, you know what, we're going to let this one pass, which maybe they didn't want to do the paperwork. I don't know. It just seemed like it was a little bit of reach.
That's happening. So that leads very nicely into my biggest sin, and it's just time travel. Like, it's the misunderstanding of the butterfly effect, cause and effect, and how shit works. Like, the conversation that O'Brien and Bashir have with that engineer, they have altered the path of his day. He was supposed to go down there, interact with the panel, do things. Sisko talking to Kirk on the bridge, Kirk shrugging at Dax. Like, every single thing that they do, there's two options here. Either what they do is a risk, which means it's changing things imperceptibly in ways that you can't understand or measure, which makes the temporal agency kind of pointless. Or it already happened that way. So it was always meant to happen. They were always meant to go back in time. They were always there. That's just how time works, which means you also don't need a temporal agency looking after it, because time happens how time was always supposed to happen. So yeah, you're either mad about it or you're not. And that's the tricky thing with time travel, is you can't change things. You wouldn't perceive it. Like when Sisko says, if anything had changed when we got back, myself and my crew would have been the first to notice it. No, you don't know that. You don't know how changing the timeline will affect you when you come back, or it just blips you out of existence and this never happened. Like, and they just accept his excuse. They're just like, I hate it when they say that, as if it's the get out of jail free card. So it's time travel's squiffiness.
It is. Yeah.
It's fun, but it's not going to make sense.
This probably could have been a question, but it was originally a sin kind of thought, which is, so the episode ends with another Tribble invasion. Is that ever solved? Because that's another big problem, right? Like,
no, Tribbles are just chilling out.
The last time this problem was solved because they shoved them all in a Klingon vessel and started a war incident, that at least we think. This time, what are they going to do? Like, what happens when Worf comes around the corner? Like, they don't show any of that.
No,
are we going to
nothing.
have an episode of a new season of Star Trek that does the same thing on this episode and goes back to the Deep Space Nine episode and picks up and solves the Tribble problem? Because we need a solution here. This can't be the end of the Tribbles.
I actually think it would be harder because of how like cramped the Deep Space Nine set was. Like, one of the articles I read said that the gift was that the bridge of the original Enterprise was so like wide open, it made putting people in places a lot easier because there was the space to do it. I think it would be so hard to do on Deep Space Nine, but I would love it. Like, you get Lower Decks to do it, don't you? You get them to go back in time and fix the Tribble problem, but we have no idea. Like, we never return to that, how they clean up the promenade. And I imagine I imagine Quark makes an absolute bank of money selling those Tribbles.
Yeah. That was my first thought, was that Quark would have used it to have some sort of enterprise like the peddler or the
Yeah.
traveling merchant from the original one. So
Mhm. Yep, very true. That's a classic one episode memory that often happens in Star Trek. So you had one about the transporters.
my only note about the transporters was, well, I guess now they're in the pattern buffer way too early. You know,
Yeah.
they're there. That was the one that I wrote down. But then the other one that you're talking about, is this idea that the guy beams out and then erases his thing from a different location. And I'm like, how often does this happen in this series or in this world?
Yeah.
It's just very convenient that you can erase your signature from another location. That seems like a big sin to me. But
you have these villains that are godlike in their ability to initiate plans that outwit people. So he manages to calibrate the time orb perfectly to get them to exactly the point that they need to get to, does the transporter shenanigans, disables the cloak, covers his trails beautifully, gets this Tribble, makes the bomb, puts it in place, sets everything up, and like I said earlier, fucks it at the final hurdle on some really basic shit. So yeah, big sin. Like, I get it. Maybe he's written a program that self-deletes. He's had 100 years to plan this. So cool. Maybe maybe he's got a program that will self-delete his own transporter trace. Fine. But if you can pull all of that off, you should have crossed the finish line with this one, buddy.
there you go.
Yeah, there you go. I thought Odo was a weird person to have on K9. Like, there haven't been changelings around.
Yeah.
How did
Well,
they
like,
expect to
even
hide
Worf.
him? Or and Worf
There's-
as well.
There wasn't really there's such a
They cover his
casualness
bridges.
to them. And
Yeah.
maybe it's because they're a space station, so it's like everyone is welcome. But you would think that there would be some kind of a protocol for registering yourself whenever you enter a space like that, and like registering anything about you so that if something happens, there's at least an understanding of how to administer medication or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I know they've snuck onto the ship, so they've probably skipped that part of it, but it still seems risky. Like, just leave them on the Defiant. Just let the four of you deal with it. It's not worth the risk of one of the Klingons popping off Worf's hat and being like, oh, we used to look like that. What the hell is going on here? That's a huge risk.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
a huge risk. But if we didn't have him on, then we wouldn't have had those lovely interactions with the Tribble and
So true.
all of the crew wondering why Worf looks different. And that was one of my favorite parts.
Oh, wouldn't swap it. Absolutely wouldn't swap it. I think your turn.
I think I'm probably done.
Yeah. Brian and Bashir survive telling Worf that he smells like lilac.
Maybe he does. Maybe he smells like lilac.
Yeah, but even if he does, you wouldn't tell him that. I don't think Klingons want to smell like lilacs. I had one last silly one, which was I don't believe Kirk wouldn't have seduced Dax as soon as he saw her.
Right. That also, like, a silly one-off one for me was at the beginning when they were joking about, just next time you see Worf, tell him he smells like a lilac.
Yeah.
I wrote down, stop fucking with my Worf.
Leave
Got a
him
little
alone.
possessive.
He's my man.
That can't end well, right?
Of course not. No, you're gonna. That ends with you in sickbay and Worf like in the brig. You get broken legs. You're gonna have a hard time picking up your teeth for broken fingers. Is what Worf would say. Well, that's an amazing episode. I'm so glad you enjoyed it, Deneé. Like, it's probably one of the best back-to-back episodes you can do, where you really appreciate diving back in and seeing all of the care and love that I put into it.
It was perfect. I think I would recommend this combo to just about anybody. Even if you've never seen TOS or Deep Space Nine, it's just a fun, like, little back to back, and you really don't need a lot of context for either of them, I don't think.
And it gives you such a fun introduction to both eras of Star Trek, the TOS and the TNG era. I love it so much. Now, that leaves us with what we're going to do next week. And honestly, I'm torn in a few different directions. So I'm going to ask you, Deneé, I have options for both of these. Do you want to stay in the original series and just go and do the original series episode. This is going to be one that kind of ties into Strange New Worlds-ish. Or do we want to go into a TNG episode that kind of ties into TOS?
Neither.
Okay, give me an episode.
I want a furry, fuzzy creature episode.
You want a very fuzzy creature
We've talked
episode?
about this. I want this season to be about
just
creatures.
The furries.
Well, I don't know that it has to be furry. Just creature episodes. If you're going to show me something from TOS, it's got to be the Gorn episode.
Well, that was going to be my next episode.
Well, then that's what I want to do.
Okay, then next week we're going to do Arena, which is the classic Gorn episode of TOS.
God. Oh my God. I just want to see Kirk fight a lizard. That's all I want.
That's exactly what's going to happen next week. Oh my goodness. Thanks for joining us. The stuff. Send us an email, captainspod@cinemasins.com. Join us on Twitter @captainspodcs. We'll be live next week. Potentially Friday, 12:30 CST.
Potentially. Is there something going on I don't know about, or are they quitting the show?
CinemaSins Twitch. Twitch.tv/CinemaSins live. Do all of the things. Go watch Deneé do some stuff on Monday as a character in a Western thing. And until next week, you're amazing. And I'm Captain Ian, and I smell of lilacs.
I'm a doctor, not a historian.
Live long and Podsper.
Thanks for listening. Want to connect with the show? Our hailing frequencies are always open through captainspod@cinemasins.com. Like, comment, and subscribe on your podcast player of choice, and be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
I'm your Captain Ian Whittington, and with me as always, she can't say the words because I can't get the sentence out.
Oh my God, it's an iZoom! Oh my God!
That was amazing.
Are they going to be in the debriefing? Are they going to be in there with Kirk when Kirk asks them? Are they? I can't see you because I'm watching it. Oh, yes! Yes! They're going to go in there, and they are. Oh, so funny. I fucking love this. They're in the bin when this happens. This is so funny. Are they the ones throwing them? Oh my God, what if they're the ones that are chucking them out? It is. He is. Check.
That's the origin story we needed.
Oh my God. Just to kind of kick off the random chat before we start the show. I had delicious food. My mother brines a turkey, and she did it all at my house this year. So she brought all this stuff over, compiled it in the kitchen, and put the turkey into the oven, which then we had to take out like one of the inserts of the racks of the oven. And we didn't know where to put it. So we put it outside on the back porch on the concrete floor, where it stayed outside in the weather on the back porch until yesterday I brought it in. So that's kind of how the last couple weeks has gone for me, is literally forgetting that part of my kitchen was outside.
Have the dogs just been peeing on it?
Thank you. Yeah, probably. Well, okay. This just tells you how much I don't go outside. So the past couple weeks, since it's been put out there, obviously, the pups will stand at the top of the deck and look down. I have like maybe 6 stairs that go down onto the patio area out back. And they'll just stare down, and then they'll look over at the door, and then they'll look down. And I've been so frustrated with them. Like, I open the door and I'll say,
"Get out and piss."
That's what I'll say. I get frustrated. Like, guys, let's go. It's time to pee. Get down there. Do your shit. Have a shit. Come back inside. Come on. Well, I don't have all day. Because here's what they do. They go over. They want to get let out. They go out. They immediately come back inside. And like 4 minutes later, they want to go back out again. So
dogs.
I need them to focus. I need them to concentrate, get their stuff done, and get back inside. But really, for 2 weeks, they've been saying to me, there is a massive piece of metal at the base of the stairs blocking 90% of our pathway.
I don't want to walk on that.
Bitch.
Yeah, I often
Please.
call you a bitch. Your dogs often do that.
They do. Well, technically in dog terms, I would be, right?
Yes, technically correct. You are technically correct. The best type of correct. I am going to start we're going to start an ongoing story. My parents have very kindly, we don't usually do like a lot for Christmas presents or birthday presents or whatnot, but my parents have said this Christmas, we would like to get you a 3D printer. They know I've been asking for it. Or
my God.
like pay towards a 3D printer. So they said, when you get some free time, do the research, find the bee's knees, find the one that you want, and then we'll go in on it together. We're going to get you a 3D printer. We're going to make it happen.
Do they know that they're very, very expensive?
I've given them ballpark figures. So the one that I would like is around the $750 to $1,000 mark. It's in that kind of bracket for, I mean, the top end ones, you can like spend as much as you want. You can pick up a cheapy one for like $200.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with this thing?
I'm gonna print stuff, Deneé, 3-dimensionally. Specifically, I'm gonna make Star Trek things. Okay, this should not be a surprise.
Oh my
not
God!
Not the Derpa Prize.
Oh come on! I want to do the Derpa Prize so bad.
Nobody is gonna do a 3D rendering. What's the word? Not diagnostic.
Diagram?
Schematic for that ship. It's not gonna happen.
Why?
Because it's shit.
But that's why it would be so funny. You could 3D print the Derpa Prize, and then there wouldn't just be one. There would be many.
There would be many.
A fleet of Derpa Prizes.
Then it becomes less special, though.
Future, and the future is that our fans, if we have any still after this episode, they will want one. They will get one. Oh, we can put we can drill a little eye hook into them and string through them, and then they could be Christmas ornaments.
Once a year, we release a Captain's Pod Christmas ornament, and we'll eventually outmarket Hallmark. Yeah. So here's the beginning of the journey. I now have to start some research, and as the weeks and years go on, I will update you with what I'm landing on. I say this because I welcome feedback from the community. If anyone out there has a 3D printer, has experience with them, let me know what your experience is, because I know the first big problem is that I'm going to have is like some are better for models and some are better for like landscapes. Like if you're doing D&D stuff, like it varies between if you're doing fine detail or big stuff.
Okay.
So what I definitely know that I'm going to be using this for is nerdy Star Trek stuff, CinemaSins branded stuff. It's going to be things that I want to make in the nerdy realm. So we will see how the research continues. So wait until Iris realizes that I can print her toys.
Oh my God. On the way to school a couple of days ago was describing a toy she wanted for Christmas. It was a Pegasus that essentially is basically a live Pegasus, but that she can use as a remote control somehow, like with articulated wingspan, and it can.
She wants to get into genetics and bioengineer a Pegasus.
I'm just thinking like this would be a fucking cool toy. She's right. How would somebody do it? Very, very expensively. But yeah, she just essentially wants a little miniature Pegasus. So if she thought for 1 second that you could print her one, you're right. You'd be in trouble.
Of course, because like the one I want is the one that's like kind of good for D&D models. So you print the wings, they pop into the body of the horse. Making her a Pegasus model wouldn't be tricky. Making it articulate and do shit? No.
No, and that's the thing about, because I've gotten an articulated dragon before. So cool.
Yeah.
But they're not toys. They're just things to look at.
No, they're action figures. Collectibles.
Okay.
So, yep, I'm going to be doing that. Happy to get feedback and people to do the research for me. That would be amazing. Thank you, guys. Crowdsource my 3D printer.
Way to use the audience appropriately there, Ian.
Hell yeah. Well, hey, I'll make you all things.
Okay, fine.
No.
You know what? Ian's asking how he can spend $1,000 on a toy that makes toys.
It's not. God damn it.
I'm going to ask.
It's a replicator, Deneé. I'm
going to ask, if I were to start my own podcast, what do you think I should do? And we'll see who gets more emails.
Okay, cool. I mean, I'm in control of the email account, so I can see where this is going to land.
You can email me directly, Deneé@cinemasins.com.
No, I'm not putting that in. I'm just going to bleep it all.
I have so much to talk about in my brain because we haven't done a show
Do
in
it.
so long.
Hit me.
So you know how like on Mondays I play the video game and I stream
Yeah.
as a character. Okay. I so badly want to do something where I'm answering people's questions, like as if I'm some sort of guru of knowledge of relationships and insight. I do have a gift for it. I'm just not certified or qualified.
Yeah.
That I made my character that I play do something similar for the newspaper. So on this role play server that I do on Mondays, it's so fun. I hope you guys come to watch it sometime. My character is writing this article that will be put in the paper that's essentially ask me, like asking people to send in the Dear Abby kind of esque style.
In England,
stuff.
that's agony aunt.
So that I can live out my dream vicariously through a character creation.
You could just stream every Monday and have that be the thing that you do. You don't need Wild RP to do that. You could 100% do that and people would tune in and have a live agony aunt show.
I want to do it.
Are there any questions that you wouldn't answer? Like, are you like, what would be your limits? Would you have to put like some parameters on the questions that are asked?
No, because I think there's a way to answer any question. It just wouldn't maybe be what the person wanted. Like, let's say somebody wrote in and they had a question about a mathematical equation.
Fair.
My answer would be like, go fucking
Google
look it up yourself. Yeah. And that's not really a great answer, but it would have to be my answer. So I guess the premise would have to be like, you have to be willing to have my answer to it, along with a massive disclaimer.
It would very much show that they didn't know you. If they were asking you a complicated math question, I was like, oh, you must be new to the chat. I'm sorry.
I like this. All questions must begin, Dear Deneé, I have a problem.
Even if it's not a problem. Yeah, that's just the beginning.
It's just like, how do I make homemade laundry detergent, but you make it a problem.
Well, I have a problem. I don't currently have any laundry detergent.
I smell. My clothing smells. Everything smells. Here's a question from Cameron. Dear Deneé, I have a problem. How do I stop not wanting my charisma checks?
Great question.
Loaded dice.
Oh, no, that's a great answer. Lots of people have suggested we do Balance of Terror, which is the TOS episode that ties in with Strange New Worlds. But do you remember anything about that final episode of Strange New Worlds from season 1? You know, where they go into the future and do the thing with the Romulans?
I'm sorry. You're asking me to access a lot of information about Star Trek all at once, all of a sudden? Okay, hold on. So we're going back to season 1 of Strange New Worlds, which predates TOS.
Yes.
That I just watched, that also went to DS9, but then we're back into the TOS, but not TOS. We're going forward to Strange New Worlds, but it's actually a new release, but it's not the newest because it's season 1.
Yes.
It's the last episode of the season, and there's something about Romulans.
Time travel.
Which reminds me about Picard. So now I'm back in Picard, and I'm looking at his Romulan girl that just doesn't appear at all beyond that. I never got to have an end to that one. So now I'm upset about that Romulan relationship with Jean-Luc. I'm sorry, Jean-Luc. I said it was too Shawnee.
You sound like Sean-Luc.
It was just I had phlegm in my mouth. I apologize.
Sean.
But that's not it at all either.
Pike is visited from Pike in the future.
Pike. Hold on. Pike.
Captain Pike
is the captain. Okay, see, that helps. Titles help sometimes. Okay.
Benjamin Pike is.
Yes. Okay. Hold on. I can see him in my mind now. Okay, I've got Pike, and he's standing beside Mystique.
Older. No, Jack. The
which reminds me of the Phoenix, the Dark Phoenix. Oh, this is fun.
Goodness me, Rebecca Remain. That's whatever it is. Anyway, what was I saying?
I don't know.
Right, Captain Pike is visited by future Captain Pike in the red outfit. And he's like, hey, if you do this thing, then you're going to affect the future. Yeah.
If you go save all the children,
exactly,
you're gonna kill the world.
Which then plumps him into an episode of TOS where he's the captain instead of Kirk, and he makes different decisions which changes the future. And they relive an episode of TOS. Now, what I was going to say is...
They relive an episode of TOS?
We have to watch that episode again, which is why I'm not doing Balance of Terror.
Wait, hold on a second. We did that entire thought experiment just so that you could explain the show we're not watching next week?
It was an excellent case in point. People are asking why I'm not doing Balance of Terror, And it's because Deneé wouldn't fully appreciate Balance of Terror because she can't remember the episode of Strange New Worlds that it ties into. And that was a beautiful encapsulation of why I'm not doing Balance of Terror just yet.
Behind the scenes, the ending when Sisko meets Kirk was taken from the episode Mirror Mirror. I wondered about that because it really didn't, it wasn't a
You didn't
part
remember
that
it?
I remembered. Yeah. This should probably be in the outtakes.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a really cool behind the scenes thing that
they
we
wanted
didn't
that
talk about during
moment,
the show.
and they just found another episode that they could pull it from where there was enough space on the screen and it was just doing the same interaction and getting Kirk's line right. Like finding that scene on its own is a stroke of genius.
I also want this comment to be in the outtakes. This is something that Zink pointed out, which was, did we catch the names of the temporal agents?
That's really fun.
Dulmer and Luxley, which is a take on Mulder and Scully.
That's amazing. It's beautiful, which was obviously on the air at the same time. That's so fun.
That's pretty funny. Well, yeah, and it makes sense. They were kind of like this ominous, like mystery detectors.
Yeah.
Can I tell you something? So years and years ago, I could not keep a straight face when I was telling jokes. I would smile. I had too much fun with my own brain, and I couldn't say something and not give away that I was already joking about it. Okay, I had to start practicing how to be straightforward, and just say something, but then know that I was being funny or sarcastic. But then I went. The pendulum swings too far. And people never knew whenever I was joking.
Oh, no.
So I've had to really work at it. And my answer to that is to say it and then immediately say that was a joke.
That was a joke, to explain yourself.
I'm sure there's going to be another evolution as time goes on because you know what? I am an evolving person.
I think that's a safe bet. I think that's how you should do it.
It's boring to say the same all the time. I would make a great Dax.
You would make a great Dax. Different hosts. Get some ridges occasionally. Love it.
Constant horniness.
Yeah.
I'm not recording.